Hey guys, welcome back to the church lighting game plan, where we're talking about here in Lesson 3 some different ways that we can program and play back our services in order to create different and interesting lighting. And in this video, we're going to talk about programming each song that you do to the music. So in the last video, we talked about how to just do 4 or 5 cues, or maybe 10, that are kind of the generic looks that you use every week, like walk-in, band, pastor, or preaching rather, walk out, which would probably be the same as walk in, especially if you got multiple services, they're going to lead into each other. And then, communion and maybe special music offering, whatever you'd think you'd want to have different lighting for. And sorry about that bump on the microphone. You'd create a separate cue for. And that's exactly where we're going to start here. Because having those cues like for walk in and walk out are still going to be important, but then we'll build on that and also create cues for each and every song that you program. And now, what are the positives and negatives? Well, the negative that I can think of at first is you literally have to program every song that you do on a regular basis. And so the first week you do this, you're going to program, every song that you're doing that week. And then the next week, you're going to program, maybe half the songs or 3/4, or, maybe 1/4 you program because you reuse 3/4 from the week before. Depends on your church and what you guys do, but you're going to spend a lot of time programming songs. The upside, however, is that you're going to be able to give the keys to the console, per se, to any volunteer, teach them how to use it, and then you don't have to worry about them making bad artistic decisions that you really didn't agree with, because they're just going to go find the cues, or the cue if it's 1 cue per song, and play it for each song. And it's a lot less complicated for a volunteer who really doesn't know or care much about lighting. And so that's definitely the upside, especially if you're just getting started with lighting as a church. So if we're laying this out in DMXs, which will be the first console we'll talk about of all 3, what you want to do is, first of all, create our DMXs screen here, where we've got banks and presets. Sorry about that zoom. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to start out and we're going to have our first bank, and that's just going to be those looks we talked about before. Those are going to be like the look for preaching, the look for preaching, a look for the music, though we're going to talk more about this individual songs, right? A look for communion, a look for offering, a look for, funerals, a look for a youth event, whatever. Those are going to be those. And then we'll create banks for every song that you do. So these are going to be songs. And then inside of those banks of songs that you do on a regular basis at your church, we're going to program presets that just work through that song. Verse, you could do like verse, chorus, and bridge. Or you can even break it out. And once you've recorded those, copy it so you do, verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, verse, ending. Maybe you program something different for the end. And then either way, if you do that, you make it so that a volunteer can just click right down, or you could even run it from stage with foot pedal. The other option, like I said before, is you could just do like verse, chorus, end, and bridge, or verse, chorus, bridge, and end. And then you could have the volunteers say, okay, here, I'll click here for verse, then chorus, then click back to verse, then click to bridge. And it's not quite as linear, but if you got good volunteers that could handle that and do that reliably, that's definitely going to save you some time. And so that's how you do that in DMX, is just simply make a bank for each song and presets that are labeled verse, chorus, etc. And maybe even note a keyword or a key phrase that makes the transition if it's not obvious. Again, that's just something to get into with your individual volunteers and see what they need to help them make the lighting right. And then on the Show Express, we're going to have a whole bunch of buttons. And this is where Show Express isn't super ideal to be programmed this way with every song. But what you could do is you could make a big old grid of buttons and make the buttons really small, because you can do that in Show Express, and then just create a few buttons, 3 buttons for different songs for all the songs you do. And then, of course, have a few buttons maybe at the top that are your walk in and walk out, your sermon look, etc. And so you can work off of that. Now, if we're doing this in Martin's MPC with their M-Touch or maybe just on the computer screen, depending on what you got, we're going to literally program cue lists for every song. So we're going to have a whole bunch of lists, and then every week you can take, and once we zoom back out, you can organize them onto the faders. So, they may go in that order. Instead of 1, 2, 3, they might go 2, 3, 1, 1 week, and then you'll change them the next week. And you can put them on the faders so that the volunteer can just go, okay, first fader, then second fader, then third fader. And I would put your looks that you use every week, like your sermon and stuff, on these 10 buttons right over here in the middle of the M-Touch. And so that's basically how you can do this program each song method on the 3 different consoles. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it made sense to you and helps you, 1, decide what console you need if you don't have one, and 2, really start to figure out what's going to work for you and your volunteers and how complicated you're able to make the lighting. And remember, if you're just starting out, don't feel the need to get overly complicated. Just start somewhere, and you can always grow and improve. And one thing, actually, and close with a little story, that I learned was, finding the right volunteers, you might know this, is not always easy. And when I was interning at that church during high school that I grew up in, and doing all the lighting, I had a bunch of lighting volunteers that our tech director kind of handed to me and said, here, teach these people how to do more with lighting. And I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I was a teenager, and so I really didn't know much about people skills. And, I quickly found out that the people that they had for volunteers weren't really there to do lighting. They just, heard there was an opening, said, I can help. And maybe that wasn't the best fit for most of them. There were 1 or 2 that were good, but then there were a few where it was just kind of like they were always confused, or they were like, we don't really want to make this any more complicated than just press this cue, press this cue, press this cue. And so maybe, that's the place you're at, and you just got to keep it real simple. Just program the whole service. But as you identify people in your congregation, that maybe are musical, or, enjoy the arts, or just like to smile a lot, whatever, and you can put them behind a lighting console and start from there. Start basic, and then you can add some more complexity as you grow your volunteers. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how to program the different colored looks and how we can do that, what the pros and cons are, etc. I'll see you guys over there.